Order, City of Oconomowoc Common Council, Tuesday, June 16th, 2020. I'd like to call to order. Has appropriate meeting notice been given?
Yes, Your Honor.
Would we all please rise, and behind us, would like to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Roll call, please.
Alderman Rogers?
Here.
Present.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
We'd like to move on to public hearing. We're going to open the public hearing for the first item, the floodplain ordinance. The purpose of the hearing is to hear the public comment on the ordinance to create section 20-152AE under the official maps of the floodplain zoning ordinance for the city of Oconomowoc. At this point, if anyone would like to make comments on the specific public hearing, please bring your cards to us, and we'll make sure that you have an opportunity to speak. Attorney Riffle.
So from time to time, there are delineations of floodplains, floodways that are made and brought to the attention of local municipalities. This has happened with regard to the Peacock Dam. And you'll note up here that there's an area that's delineated below 860 feet above sea level that is been determined to be floodplain or floodway. Typically, when a municipality receives this information, what they try to do is to match up their zoning to meet up with the actual in-place situation. And so this is a housekeeping situation. It is simply to put into place to put the public on notice that we are zoning this area consistent with what it actually is. Now, there have been questions with regard to how this affects the property that is involved here. It doesn't affect it at all. Whether you make the zoning change or not, nothing changes. The DNR will not allow filling or will not allow any construction below 860 feet above sea level. And the DNR will also allow filling below 860 feet above sea level. So this is a housekeeping matter, very simple, and the Plan Commission recommended that you go ahead and make this zoning amendment.
Do we have any comments from the public? Any comments from the alderman? We'll go ahead and close this session of the public hearing. We'll move on and open the public hearing for the cell tower ordinance. The purpose of this hearing is to hear the public comment on amending section 17.10815 of the municipal code, zoning code pertaining to the conditional use permit of specific standards of tower antennas of any height. Mr. Gallo.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I will give a brief overview of the public hearing tonight. This is a zoning ordinance text amendment that relates to the standards for approval of a cellular tower. This ordinance, though, that's before you has nothing to do with 5G antennas. This is merely bringing our ordinance at the city level into compliance with some recent legislation changes that have taken place to strengthen our ordinance. So when an ordinance or a tower comes in to the city for review, they would have to conform with various standards. So the purpose of the ordinance is threefold. It's number one is to formally create a radius of clear land around it. That's we call it the fall zone. And this was a requirement, and this will be section D in the ordinance that talks about the fall zone. The second purpose is to bring our local ordinance into compliance with an FCC ruling regarding aesthetics of towers located in a proximity to a historic area or a historic building, those buildings designated on the National Register of Historic Places. So that's section E of the ordinance. And then the third and final purpose is to bring our local ordinance into compliance with the Wisconsin Act 14 that was approved in 2019, and that talks about setbacks from residential lot lines, that a tower would have to be set back equal to the height of the tower from any residential lot lines. For some of the council members that may be unaware or new to the council, in 2017, Madison adopted legislation that said any use that a community has that requires a conditional use, which towers do, the local community must create standards, okay, in order to approve those. And if the use meets all of the standards, then with substantial evidence, then we are somewhat obligated to approve it. Now, we can determine, you guys are the judges, if it meets those standards. And if you guys feel it does, then we can approve it. So this is creating some new standards in our ordinance regarding the review for cell towers. As I mentioned, paragraph D talks about a fall zone. And it says that it would need to have a radius of clear land around the tower. These towers can fall, and we would want to make sure that if they fall, they are not falling on any building, that all the area around them would be clear of any structures. That's basically what paragraph D does. Paragraph E talks about no towers within 500 feet of a historical building. There are 6 historical buildings in the city on the National Register of Historic Places. We have the Inn at Pine Terrace. We have the 434 North Lake Road. Building is 2. Number 3 is the building we're currently in, City Hall. 4 is the depot. 5 is the Armory down there, and 6 is the newest one. That would be the former middle school. It's now the Oconomowoc Apartments. So what section E is the aesthetics, and again, that came from an FCC order that was just recently passed. It says no tower, and this is, remember, a tower would be a cell tower on private property, one of those tall poles, not in the right-of-way, cannot be placed within 500 feet of these structures. So those would be the areas of no towers. And then the last paragraph that would be creating, again, comes from the act that was done in 2019. It talks about setbacks from a residential area. This is an example I put up there of city of Fayetteville, North Carolina. It talks about they're battling. Someone put a tower real close. That's one is 250 feet from a residential properties, and there's concerns. Obviously, you wouldn't want a house right there. So it just basically says that towers need to be set back the height of the tower to any residential property line. So the Plan Commission did recommend the text amendment relating to towers to the council with a positive recommendation. I will be happy to answer any further questions during the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. We have comment from Jill Persek.
Thank you. Jill Persick, 701 York Imperial Drive in Oconomowoc. The FCC guidelines haven't been updated since 1996 regarding the effects of wireless radiation, and have recently refused to update those requirements, and neither the federal or state government or the FCC or the telecom industry is going to consider our well-being. So we can't depend on them to safeguard the residents. So our ordinances from every committee need to exert as much control as we possibly can. Now, the Plan Commission is addressing tower setbacks, fall zones, and aesthetic requirements, which is, great. And I've also heard that these have nothing to do with 5G. However, all towers and facilities will have the potential for any generation of wireless. So I've got some questions and I've got some recommendations. These questions have to do with paragraph 7, the whereases in the ordinance, and I know that those were already in there. But I'm looking at specifically how was due consideration given to the impact of noise, for example. What did due consideration look like? And what are the standards for offensive? And offensive to whom? Regarding the towers or antennas not, or being not contrary to the public health, safety, or general welfare, well, are there health experts on the plan committee or any of our committees? And I know that there are restrictions in the laws for making this an issue, but our general ordinance says not, that we won't do anything contrary to public health, safety, or the general welfare of the city. And there's thousands of peer-reviewed studies showing damaging effects to us in the environment from even 3 and 4G, and 5G hasn't even been tested. Then regarding property values, well, have real estate agents been asked about the property values? A survey conducted by the National Institute for Science, Law, and Public Policy found that buyers would pay as much as 20% less for a property near a cell tower or antenna. So that's things we have to consider. Other questions I have: how many small cells will we be exposed to? How many is enough, and who is that up to? Shouldn't there be additional requirements for school buildings and nursing homes and so on? And how many towers are we going to allow? What's our overall strategy? In other words, what else is not up to the telecom industry or state and federal laws that we can and we should put in our ordinances to support public health, safety, and the city's welfare? And are there certain energy requirements considered? This ordinance doesn't address that. And how will the increased energy usage, which will be really substantial, alter and affect our residents? Now, my recommendations to add to the ordinance would be to add in the ability to randomly test radio frequency radiation, at least every year with independent testers, or put in a section in which an applicant must attest under penalty of perjury that their statements are true, like Nevada City, California just did. And I was really happy to hear at the Plan Commission meeting that Mr. Gallo will be preparing an overall map of the towers and facilities and what frequencies are being generated and who owns the tower and what telecom company is leasing the facility, and maybe some other details. But I would also add to that map and information be readily accessible to any citizen. And then when applications are filed, have a very transparent mechanism to notify the public. So I would add in those recommendations to this or any other ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Laura Ustamica.
Thank you. Laura Ustyanovska, W379N6272 North Lake Road here in Oconomowoc. Thank you for working on these requirements. And like Jill and Jason both mentioned, although it doesn't particularly pertain to 5G at this point, it can be switched over. So I feel like these things are worth mentioning. Also, I appreciate that a lot is regulated too, but I want you to just go as far as you're able. Regarding the setback from the single family residences, I really think 1,000 feet would be ideal. The industry claims that 5G can travel 1,500 feet, and simultaneously they run commercials that say it can travel 3,000. So 1,000 feet is a safe distance, but able to provide reliable service for homes. But I think, we need to include schools and playgrounds, libraries, churches, any other area where there's children or elderly, hospitals, nursing homes. And who's going to monitor the radiation exposure given off by the towers and antennas? What are the repercussions of violations? I'd like to see that written somehow into an ordinance. And then one other concern I'd like to see addressed in local legislation is about the data that's being collected through these installations in the future and already right now through our smart meters or things that are existing. Who gets the data? What data exactly are they collecting? And will they collect? How is it being protected? And how can our city be more transparent about that to the people who are having data collected from them? Thank you for your time, and thank you for continuing to work on this.
Thank you very much. Any further questions from council? Alderman Spielberg?
Since we are in the public hearing, can I ask one of the people who spoke a question?
Yes.
Okay, so Jill, in your recommendations,
Stand up, Jill, if you want to come to the podium, please.
so Jill, in your recommendations, the first one was adding the ability for the council to randomly test radio frequency radiation, and that Nevada City has also done that and added that to their ordinance. In your second recommendation on giving residents the opportunity to manage their health issues, et cetera, did you find any precedent or any example of any ordinances out there where a community has done that already?
Many, many communities are putting these things in place and they're working on it. And I'm not sure, I would have to go back to the books to find out who's done what.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Kavieski? Oh, yes. Yes, please.
Really?
Mhm.
But how do we do that then? Do we put that in our standards for the conditional use permit?
Doesn't have to be anywhere. It's, yeah, right.
But
Any
should it be the
person.
expense of our city to test?
Something has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions in public hearing? Alderman Kavieski?
Thanks, Jill.
We're just getting public comment. Are
I
you
got
okay
questions
bringing
too.
this
I'll
into
save mine for
discussion
later.
later?
Yeah, save mine for later.
Okay. No problem. So we're going to go ahead and close this portion of the,
What?
we're closing this portion of the public hearing and moving on to the next agenda item, approval of the minutes for May 19th, 2020.
So moved. Minutes from May 19. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next agenda item, comments, suggestions from the citizens. I do not have any additional comments, so we're going to, or any cards. So we're going to move right forward to the Oconomowoc Response Task Force reports. Mr. Duffy.
Yep, so I only have 1 minute and 25 seconds according to the mayor's new program.
Thank God. Make it happen.
23. Wow, it already started.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for the opportunity to provide an update. If you recall, early in April, when this new council was seated, the mayor proposed the Oconomowoc Response Task Force to be able to address the issues, concerns, and needs of our community related to 3 different areas: business, residents, as well as nonprofit community. So with me this evening, Pat Newdecker, who represents the nonprofit group. Jason Curtis, unfortunately, was away out of town with his family. Aaron Vandy Zandy is our new marketing intern, and Kevin Peeler, who is with 3 Barn. So they are all part of this as well. I will do the initial speaking. Aaron will jump up here at some point as well to share some news with you as well. So really want to take the opportunity to share with you our journey of what we've done over the past 8 weeks, I guess. Really building the foundation of what this all has been. What we've done through this process is taken the time to assess the needs of the community, analyze information that we received from the community, really establish some actions. If you recall, when this was proposed, actions as it relates to now 3 to 6 months and well into the future. So we'll share some of that as well as what we've been able to do and respond. How we first started is we assembled and the groups were assembled and the task force members were assembled We've continued to gather information. Through that assessment process, we did surveys. We did a business survey. What you're seeing in the left-hand corner of the screen is really the needs of the business community from that survey. We had about 125 respondents. We shared this through the Chamber of Commerce, downtown business organizations, and direct business contacts that we had with the city. And I'll talk about the themes that came out of that survey as well in a future slide. We also did a nonprofit resident and faith-based survey. That task force worked collaboratively together because what we determined in our initial conversations was there was some overlap there as it relates to resident needs and potential resources that organizations in our community had. So what you're seeing in the lower right-hand corner is those 325 respondents. The majority of those were individuals residing in this community. We did have nonprofits as well as faith-based communities to do that, providing that feedback, which was the basis for our next step of analyzing the information. We saw based on that information were some themes that came out. From the business community was a need for a resource for inquiries and understanding, really of the orders and guidelines that were in place at the time when the survey was done. Communication and information, a source for that, efficient, timely, and information that they can use to be able to address their questions related to operating their business, or could they operate their business at that time, as well as potential financial assistance, loans, grants, those types of things that could be an opportunity, given some businesses had to completely shut down during this time. Some of them were able to pivot, and we'll talk about some of those actions. From the resident perspective, many of the themes came out about communication and understanding what was really happening, what they should, during all of this whole process, there was a lot of information out there, and it was really trying to assemble that information, what was correct information, what was information they were hearing from the TV or online. Sometimes that conflicted, which created some fear in people. A real sense of people wanting, we are a community that loves to gather and get together. That whole issue of hope and belonging and how do we continue to move forward when we're stay at home was really when this was taking place. How do we ensure our safety or our family's safety now and in the future? What resources are available? Social, emotional, issues related to their current employment situation. There are situations related to homeschooling. There are situations related to everything going on in now in their home, and a need for really positive outlook or positivity. From the nonprofit group, we saw some things and concerns related to operational concerns. Really, what we heard from them is the inability to provide services effectively given social distancing, physical distancing. How can we meet our mission given people have to stay at home and we can't engage with people? Financial impacts, many of our organizations, both nonprofit and faith-based organizations, do things through fundraising, do things through contributions to their members, as well as events. Many of those things, whether people chose not to go to their faith-based location, the things dropped. People had to cancel events, which were their major fundraisers, that made their operations continue to flow. The socialization piece, really that loss of interaction and purpose. Organizations trying to find out how do we continue to engage with the people in the entities that are involved with them. And a lot of them came out and talked a lot about that we should be seen as a solution, as a resource provider to help that other pillar of the resident side. So now, one of the other things that we had to do is really build a foundation and build an awareness as what this Oconomowoc response was. We tried to use various opportunities and methods to do that, to get the word out. Fortunately, we had Kevin from 3 Barn to help us move this to the next level. And I apologize if I'm technology challenged, because this is the hardest one to pull off. But with the ability of Kevin and his people, we've been able to do some things to share the messages of our community.
Hello, I'm Bob Duffy. My name is Jason Curtis. The task force here in Oconomowoc was designed to help provide more resources to help us get through the COVID-19 pandemic.
Our task is to
Help make the task force successful by sharing different resources that they may have or different ideas they may have in order to help the community feel more connected or to help individuals who may be in need. And in fulfilling those needs, residents of the businesses are help us and make us a better community. So using communication tools obviously was our important way to get awareness and continue to move this forward. So as it relates to the Oconomowoc Response Task Force, what have we done so far? I think our task force members have joined in with open hands, with ideas, energy, and thoughtfulness, thinking about our overall community in general. And if you remember what was shared with you originally in the circles and that overlap, we've truly through this process seen overlap. How can we be working together, assisting one another? So let's talk a little bit about some of those actions, and I'll work through each of the different ones. So the nonprofit and faith-based pillar, their identification was to connect the community with organizations to serve our needs. And what we kept identifying was serving the basic needs of the community related to food, shelter, safety, and health. So what have we done so far? We surveyed the organization, so I shared that data and information is available on our website. Interestingly, we never really had a community organization inventory in this community. We had a list from the chamber and we have a list from certain other organizations. So that group really compiled a larger comprehensive list so that we can have that available to our community now and in the future. Okay. So the other thing is making sure we continue to communicate the opportunities available out to the different entities and to the organizations so they can understand and learn about what they need to do to overcome this as an organization. Currently work on the establishment of a resource forum to collect information. As all the information is in different places, so that is one of the next action steps to be able to gather that information, and we're working towards that, and as well as establishing that directory that will be housed on the task force webpage, and then what we can do with that in the future we'll continue to see. So some examples of what we've done as it relates to the task force. So we established the partnership between Oconomowoc Responds, Western Lakes Fire, and COCO's in serving free meals to the community. 1,700 free meals were served at the Western Lake Fire District location. We had people volunteering to be able to do that. Any of the donations came through related to that. Those donations did not go to the task force. They did not go to Western Lakes. That all went to PPE for our area first responders and healthcare facilities. So again, it was an effort to be able to help entities and organizations. Again, as a resource in sharing information, and again, we, the task force and individuals of the task force promoted the Milwaukee Biz Times webinar series to help nonprofits deal with the impact. Again, we're part of a smaller area, but have access to resources in larger communities that can help our own communities in those partnerships. And lastly, collaborated with the library to raise awareness. That's the biggest thing we continue to see as a need, is raising awareness of our group and what we can continue to do to help the community as we move forward. So from the resident pillar perspective, they're focused to connect the community in areas of basic needs again. Remember, the organizations are needs providers. These are the ones who are going to be accessing those needs. So again, surveyed the community, compiled those needs. We talked about those themes, communicating the services available to them. And again, this is that overlap, right? We're starting to see they're the ones who need the information that the nonprofit task force is assembling. Excuse me. We talked a lot about a positive image, positivity. What can people look forward to? So those elements. Volunteers have brought up the fact that we want to do things to be able to energize people in our community. So the clock tower tunes, the 5th weekend in a row that we've done, provided music out of City Hall to really engage people, pop up and play. So there's students who pop up in the downtown, play for half an hour, 45 minutes to entertain the community while they're out and about. One of the interesting conversations we had through the task force is, we're hitting people online through video. We're reaching out to the newsprint media. How do we get to those people who aren't part of those two communities? So the retro idea was you create the Community Happenings Blackboard. That blackboard travels both to the farmer's market and is in a downtown storefront window. And then we'll talk a little bit, I'll let Aaron share some news about Independence Day as well. So here's some images of what some of those things look like. I know one of the purple you see there, we worked directly with the Oconomowoc High School. Obviously, we have a group of kids that weren't able to go to Carnegie Hall, so we did clock tower tunes with the Oconomowoc Wind Symphony out of City Hall one weekend in order to recognize those kids who were no longer able to go to New York. We've worked in collaboration with our utility, who donated purple lights, and volunteers put them up in downtown to recognize the importance, since they are not likely having a graduation ceremony. And we lent the opportunity for our Village Green, where they as volunteers painted 400 stars on the Village Green, representing each student that was to graduate in 2020 from Oconomowoc High School. We talked about clock tower tunes, we talked about chalkboard, and then again, softening that, that situation as we see downtown about safety, and the signage from people concerned about physical distancing, social distancing, and a softening message from the city talking about be safe, be smart, and be kind. Because we need to be respectful of this time, because we're all making choices of our own and how we continue to go through that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Aaron. Oh, I think he said he gave me 20.
So we will have the 2020 Independence Day fireworks, and they will be live streamed. Special thanks to Oconomowoc Park and Recreation, Bank 59, and 3 Barn for supporting this opportunity for it to be live streamed so everybody can experience it safely.
Let's talk about the business pillar. So that focus was to connect businesses with resources for their own sustainability as well as prosperity, both as a community and as a businesses. We talked about the survey of what we did, compiling the business resource page. Proud to say we were the first community in Waukesha County to have a business resource page, deploy that out. Many other communities looked at that as a model for others to follow. So again, we very quickly deployed that information. Communicating opportunities available from various aspects. From an operational standpoint, our city staff, both the city and the police department, really were the resource for the business community with the governor's order. And a lot of questions that came from the businesses about what does it mean? Am I essential? Am I not essential? What can I do? What can't I do? So a lot of collaboration and conversations from the public safety side in my office about how do you work through and with those businesses given the unknowns that the orders had in place in helping them with interpretations and those elements. We coordinated and deployed in working with Public Works. We deployed the carryout zones and the clerk staff about ensuring that people weren't in violation of liquor license issues and carryout pieces. We knew that businesses wanted to try to provide services to the community. We needed to figure out a way to do that. So within 3 days, we had carryout zones in this community. Again, many communities saw that and started moving in that direction. The other thing, now that we're coming and moving out of some of that, sharing with us those things that we already had in place. So outdoor dining guidelines, outdoor display elements, which we approved in this community in 2012. I know as we talk to other communities, there's other communities who are adopting those ordinances now. We were fortunately able to do that in place. Financial opportunities, sharing communications with the communities about those financial opportunities. The PPP, the EIDL from the SBA, those are funding opportunities. We disseminated information out to them, worked with our partners, Waukesha County Business Alliance, Small Business Development Center. Waukesha County helped with a lot of our businesses who had those questions, as well as package their applications for them. We know for sure we have at least 12 in this community that use those partnerships. Others use their local banks to be able to do that for them. Guidelines, obviously, we've talked a lot about guidelines. Once the Supreme Court overturned the order, lots of questions came from businesses about how is it safe to reopen? What should we do? What shouldn't we do? So by very quickly vetting information and trying to establish what is in the best interest of the safety of the business owners, their employees, the public, and their customers, shared with them the guidelines that we felt were industry standards for all of the industries, whether it was restaurant, retail, other types of businesses that were identified as those best guidelines for them to be able to follow. Going again, back to the information from the survey, making sure customers are safe, their employees are safe. And those guidelines were established based on that and making sure we shared that because safety was an underlying concern in all three of the groups as we continue to move forward. So promotional initiatives, as you've seen, we've used social media. Obviously having 3 barns to be able to do video production really brings us to the next level. The mayor and I did a presentation with the Waukesha County Business Alliance last Friday or 2 Fridays ago. That information is now being shared with many communities, not just in this county, but other areas who are watching what we are doing and how we're trying to do it. Because our goal is always not to get to where we were, it's to get beyond that. Lastly, the marketing intern, obviously through that partnership with 3 Barn, with Bank 5-9, Exonia Bank, those partnerships are invaluable to be able to do where we can bring it with the next level and bring Aaron on board, really to concentrate on continued awareness of Oconomowoc Responds, website content and creation, both with Oconomowoc Responds, Visit Oconomowoc, all those things, but sharing information about the good things happening in our community, as well as implementing a broader array of social media and communications out to our community. We didn't do all this alone. I can tell you on the business community, we were all about how do we collaborate as organizations. Another thing that started to continue to happen in here, we have an individual in the business task force that we brought on board, purely neutral person, to have conversations with our Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Business Organization about moving forward. Are there opportunities for greater collaboration and cooperation? So those are ongoing. But one of the things we continue to talk about as organizations is how do we continue to support our own? How do we continue to support local? So again, not everything has been done by the city, but one of the best things we've seen as we've continued to do this and partner is we're sharing everybody else's message. So again, we're doing things through Oconomowoc Responds as well as the Chamber, and then I thought I'd share this with you what the Downtown Business Organization did, because again, it's very well done, and they are being, recognized for what they've been able to pull off.
With the Downtown Oconomowoc Business Association, also known as DOBA. I'm here with the current board members and business owners. In light of the current events, we're here to show you how you can continue to support us locally.
Our main focus during this time is ensuring the safety of our customers. The businesses have been diligent with the ever-changing CDC guidelines in implementing best practices.
We appreciate the partnership that we have with our community. We are asking for your support today. Could you please follow our downtown businesses on social media, find alternative ways that we are looking to maintain
Promise there's only a couple more of those.
Was there a cat video on there we could go back?
Was there a what?
There was a cat video on the side. Can we go backwards?
No. So as you heard in the survey, it was very important to share information because of the confusion that everything changed. I mean, things literally changed overnight. Literally changed overnight in this community. And again, you know, we can't say enough about thanks to Three Barn because they really pivoted and were able to do some things for us that we do not have the capability to do purely as the city. But in that partnership, it has been truly tremendous for us to be able to get the word out. And again, deal with the business community and share with the residents about how do we know how is Oconomowoc open, what's open, and how can we make sure that we are safe. So maybe you've seen this one. This one might be bigger. So what's next? We talked a little bit about what we've done in the last week, past weeks. You know, we are continuing to move forward. We need to continue to share information with people. So here's where we're going from here. So from the nonprofit faith community, currently we're testing our information gathering tool that we've assembled on the city website to gather the information for the community resource directory. And again, that's not just for now. We believe that's a resource that can continue well into the future to serve this community. It's our goal to have that community resource directory deployed in July. So we're continuing to want to move towards that. Continue to understand and communicate organizational financial needs to improve services and how people can support that mission. We have organizations who are trying to do things out for the community. We need to better understand how they can continue to do that and how we can support them. Once we establish the directory, we've continued to hear that this directory potentially also can serve as a volunteer clearinghouse, a place where organizations can identify where volunteers are needed, and volunteers who want to give their time can go to find those areas to get involved. I mean, that's an important thing we've heard, and we really heard that when we continue to have our conversations. And lastly, with those resources, those who have financial resources to give, they can go to that resource page and determine what organizations they can donate to, what those needs are, and make sure that they align with what their values are. Again, right now, you individually have to go find places to do that. If we can create a resource that people can do that, it makes it more efficient for all of us. Talked about residents, the resource, community resource guide will be able to be there for their needs. You know, we have organizations that provide for all those basic needs: food, financial security, employment concerns, social and emotional support, faith-based support. By building this, we can use that from the resident side as well. Positive stories, how do we continue to instill hope, positive stories and image and what's good about Oconomowoc? You know, that's what we are all about here as community. We enjoy living here and we want to continue to do that and share that good message. And then it continue to build that awareness and communicate back to the community about what those things are that are continuing to happen. People want communications and timely information. We've tried to do that throughout this whole process. I think we've done as effectively as we possibly can. We get information disseminated out both to residents as well as the business community. So from the business side, obviously sharing resources that are critical to them moving forward, especially related to changing guidelines and recommendations, right? We have no orders. We have recommendations, we have guidelines. Best we can do is share that information and they make their choices about how they want to continue to operate their business to ensure the safety of their employees as well as their customers.
bringing our efforts to the next level to promote this community. I think we're there. We'll continue to be there with the assistance of what we've already done with Three Barn, with the assistance of Aaron, be able to do that. Resources become available, provide timely information and business access to that. And we continue to do that. Yesterday, they opened up the Azrael Inn grant. We made people aware of it when it was announced. We reminded them of it. Wrote 15 letters in the last day or so about, because they're required to have a letter saying that they were in business on February 20th, I think it was. So deploying that information to be able to assist as it relates to that. And really lastly, continue our partnerships with the Small Business Development Center, Waukesha County Business Growth, and really continue that conversation between our local business organizations about greater coordination, collaboration. You know, many people aren't, some probably aren't even aware we have 2 business organizations in this community. And are there some opportunities and some efficiencies to be able to do that? So what we've learned as a community is we're very resilient, and together we have responded. We've done a lot of things in a very short time. And I think we have more places to go. Each entity, organization, business, and individual have different needs. It's really, really hard to get very specific to those. But I think what we've really tried to do is overarch some of those broader issues and needs. And I think we will continue to respond in the future. So the last thing, you know, here's some inspiration to demonstrate that. Again, kudos to our friends at Three Barn and what they've been able to share in the story and inspiration of our community.
Hearts ache in the sudden stillness. How did this happen? How will we get through this? How will we get back to normal? How? Anger for what we lost, sorrow for what we worked so hard for, fear for an unknown future. As our world slows, we remember why we find comfort in our connections, in conversations over coffee, a belly laugh over a beer, a pat on the back, a shoulder to cry on, a hand to high five, a hug to last the ages. A body to lean on. As the world turns upside down, we search for answers in this new and uncharted territory. How do we find purpose and a sense of peace in this time of struggle? What could we discover as we gaze upon this blank page? A chance to regroup, reimagine, reopen, and respond. This is when we show up to write a new story. We realize our fears dissolve like stars when the sun rises on a new day. We find the resolve to unclench fingers, one by one, as they strain to stay curled in balled fists at our side. Open hands have strength to rise up and surrender. Open hands have strength to help others rise. Joined hands allow us to discover our strength of spirit together. This time of upheaval, we have a second chance to imagine alternatives. In this moment of time, who will we be in this new uncharted territory? Everywhere we look, we are surrounded by heroes. They grin at us with crooked smiles, maybe to hide the grimace of the weight they're carrying. And despite it all, they carry on. Don't worry, we got this. Because great things happen when we all work together. It's how we respond. The community saving the community. Want to come along?
So that's been our journey. We still want people to stay connected and engaged. Obviously, we deployed the task force web pages on the city's website. We'll continue to do that. We'll continue to deploy things on the Oconomowoc Response Facebook page, which again, Three Barns has graciously been doing this for us as a true community member. This has all been donated to us because they believe in this community and they believe that together we will get through this.
So with that, I am going to first ask Pat, Aaron, and Kevin, did I miss anything? Is there anything you guys want to add? Then I'll ask Aldermans Ellis, Kowieski, Zappel, you guys serve on the task force. Any thoughts that you can share regarding, your involvement in the process and what you've seen to date?
Alderman Ellis?
Yeah, and I also want to thank those who have volunteered their time for these committees. I can say I had some reserve at first, but I can honestly say that it's really had a positive effect on the community. All three pillars have had a very, very positive effect. Thank you, Mayor, for having the insight to come up with these three areas. And I think that Oconomowoc in the future is going to really benefit from the lessons learned and how we collectively came together as a whole body of community to fight this. So thank you.
Any further comments before we move on? Alderman Rozak.
Yeah, two pragmatic questions. One, what's the timeline on the task force? So when do we anticipate the task force starts winding down? And then combined with that question is, as the task force winds down, how do we convert these resources or preserve the info that we've collected? So one of the comments you said was about the directory of, once the task force wind down, I'd like to know when that happens, and then how do we convert the information or resources that we've gathered into something, does that go to you? Does that go to tourism? What does that go to,
Well, number one, I think we talked about, obviously, we don't know when the pandemic's going to end. I know what was presented to you was hopefully in a year this will be done, or at the end of the year this would be done, assuming all things get better. We don't know that. Believe me, the task force has had the question. We are currently building this, but truly recognize, and I know I've brought it up in some of our conversations, is this, we as a city have been the catalyst to bring it to where it is. Are we the future organization to carry it once it's assembled? So I can't give you an answer to that. That is a question that's been raised in the task force. I think we can be a very strategic resource and build it. We are likely not the organization that would continue to carry it and continue to maintain it. But again, that's up for a conversation. We have very specific roles in state statute, as Mr. Riff will share with you. But in human services, not one of those. But again, we do know that this was a very specific time frame of need, and it's important that we realize that they all overlapped.
The initial time frame is to close it by the end of the year, this calendar year. But definitely, I think it's a good point, is not to lose what's been accomplished and figure out where those will be managed moving forward. But to Mr. Duffy's point, we still don't know. Any further questions? Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate the presentations and
Was it 20
all the
minutes?
incredibly hard work that all of our volunteers and our community members have done. So thank you. Let's,
Really?
any further comments from the audience or questions? I do not have any more blue cards. Okay, we're going to move on to item 7, consent agenda items. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Move on to item 8, committee reports. Start with our first item from Protection and Welfare. Consider act on Resolution 20-R2877, granting renewal 2020-2021 alcohol beverage licenses. Entertain a motion.
I'll move to act on Resolution 20-R2877, granting alcohol beverage license.
Second.
Any discussion? Call roll, please.
I'm going to do it from here because I didn't know if you wanted to add any questions. Alderman Rogers. Alderman Rozak.
Aye. This is kind of fun.
Alderman Zaffel.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Public Services. Consider act on Resolution 20-R2882, approving budget amendment for Thackeray Trail Design Engineering.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, no, I mean, just so people understand what we're doing that are watching online and for the public, it's a $320,000 budget amendment, 2/3 majority vote to pass it. And this isn't extra money. This is money that's already been set aside that we now have the funding for to move forward with the design of the Thackeray Trail rebuild. Correct? Did I say that all right?
Reconstruct.
Boy, you've got it covered.
Mr. Frey, would you
you're
give it a
correct.
brief discussion, please, and review of this resolution?
The item before you tonight is, as Alderman Rozak was very well-spoken, we borrowed money for the reconstruction of Thackeray Trail. Those funds are in-house right now. It's a 2021 project, and as such, we'd like to start to do the design engineering this year. Because it's not a line item in the 2020 budget, we need to do the budget amendment that's here tonight. Alderman Rozak's correct. We're requesting $320,000 for doing this. So this allows us to design the project now and have it out to bid at an optimum time to get the best pricing.
Thank you, Mark. Awesome.
Any discussion? Call roll, please.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Move on to Plan Commission item number 9. First on docket is consider act on ordinance 20-0979, creating section 20.152AE or 3, hydraulic shadow map of the Peacock Fowler Dam. Mr. Gallo.
Thank you, Mayor. We held a public hearing on this topic earlier. We heard a brief overview of the amendment to the floodplain zoning text amendment that is before you this evening. It does create a new map. It would be listed under all of our regulatory maps in the ordinance that the city must follow. And this is the area right by the Peacock Dam, otherwise known as North Lake Road, the dam there. So this is an ordinance that brings our city maps in conformance with the same maps the DNR is looking at. And we all heard the impacts that it would have on the property or the non-impacts to the properties adjacent to it. I'd be happy to answer any question. Mark Fry's here, as well as our city attorney, to help answer any questions.
Anyone like to make a motion?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Alderman Kavieski.
Jason. Real quick. It pertains to this indirectly. And I'd like to, because we do have several new members of this body as it pertains to this topic, there are a couple of letters from the DNR previously provided that take into consideration that earthen dam in that floodplain. I would like for this body at some point in the not too distant future to take a look at those documents to get them up to speed in regards to some of the recommendations associated with that. Again, I think it's appropriate at this point, since we're taking a look at the issue of this being a floodplain, to fully provide all the information associated with that property.
Do you have the documents to enter into record?
I can forward them electronically. I will forward them electronically to our city clerk.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Next item on the agenda, consider act on ordinance 20-0980 to repeal and recreate section 17.10815 of the City of Oconomowoc zoning code relating to towers and antennas. Mr. Gallo.
Thank you. We also held a public hearing on this zoning ordinance text amendment earlier this evening. We had several speakers on it. It creates additional standards for the approval process for cellular towers on private property. Currently, our zoning ordinance just says it must comply with the state statutes. This takes us a little bit above and beyond. It incorporates an FCC order about aesthetics. It also talks about some of the setbacks and fall zones that the state statutes talk about a local community may enact. So when our legal team saw those may enact, they were worried that we could be challenged if we don't specifically enact the fall zone and the setbacks into our ordinance. So we're just kind of making sure that we have those things in place. So the ordinance that was before you has been reviewed by our legal team several times, and we are comfortable with this. This is, again, not for 5G, but it's for towers that are on private property. Thank you.
Alderman Rozak.
Jason, you might want to stay up there real quick. I just have a few real quick questions on this. My understanding is that what you presented to us in the black section is the new sections, correct?
Correct.
And those are based on the Act 14, is that correct?
A variety of the FCC order,
and
as
the
well
FCC order.
as Act 14, as well as something that our legal team thought should be added into and memorialized into the ordinance, because it's the state statutes currently 66.0404 say a community may enact, and we are formally enacting it.
So in what we're doing here tonight is really cleaning up and making our ordinances in compliance with state law, creating that more restrictive use, and we're restricting in the historic areas, and we're creating the fall protection and the residential setbacks. And there was a comment from somebody from the audience, I can't remember her name, but she asked about whether we can make the towers go further away. When I read Act 14, it says a setback requirement must be based on the height of the proposed mobile service structure. So we can't make them go further back, but what we can say, if your structure is 400 feet high, it's got to be at least 400 feet from the
That's my
residential
understanding.
areas.
I don't think we can be more restrictive when it comes to these specific rulings for towers, but we can be as restrictive as what the state and federal laws are.
I think that's a correct interpretation of that. So what we're doing tonight is making our statute for these cell towers more restrictive in compliance with state law, and I think that's a good thing. I think to the extent we can do more in the future, we can certainly address this in our technology committee, right, Karen? Thank you, Jason.
Alderman Mulder.
So this may be moot after that. but in, I guess it's in F, setback, that it's specific to a single-family residential, is that as far as we can go? Why not multifamily units? Why not schools? Why not?
That's the way the ordinance is written, the statute's written, so we're just mirroring that.
Okay.
I've gotten
Attorney
very
Riffle?
Thank you, Mayor. I should probably ask, right?
Control here.
I've gotten a very clear impression that we want to be as restrictive as we possibly can. And so what this ordinance does is makes our ordinance as restrictive as it possibly can.
Thank you. Alderman Spiegelberg.
Okay, yeah, number one, I really do wish we would have had a chance to vet this with the technology board, but obviously we are where we are. And I am glad that this is more restrictive because obviously that has been our goal. I know in the Plan Commission meeting, Jill had gotten up and spoken with some of her recommendations, and then I think Commissioner Kowieski had posed that question to Stan, and could you reiterate or clarify what you said in the Plan Commission meeting about can we incorporate any additional recommendations into our standards?
Which ones?
Well, even some of the ones that, you know, Commissioner Kowieski had alluded to, some of the ones that Jill brought up as far as randomly testing the radio frequencies, giving residents the opportunity to manage their health issues, providing overall map of facilities, publishing somewhere easily accessible, just some of these other recommendations. I won't go on ad nauseum.
Well, you can test to your heart's content. You don't need an ordinance to do that. With regard to mapping, you know where they are. You can map them. You can provide that to the public. I think actually Jason is on that right now.
Okay.
In terms of frequencies and that sort of thing, that's a matter of public record. You can gather that. I can't answer the question as to whether or not you can mandate that they provide that on an annual basis. I haven't researched that. It's separate apart from 660404, so I'd have to look at that.
So is this the most restrictive we can be right now on this ordinance? Because Alderman Rozak mentioned something about us being able to address this again in technology board. What else can we address regarding this ordinance?
Right now, all we're trying to do is we observe changes in federal law, and we try to bring that to your attention, and changes to state law, and we try to bring that to your attention. And what we try to do is to introduce potential local legislation that makes it as restrictive as we can possibly be and still be in conformity with not running afoul of the overriding state or federal law, and that's what we've done.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Alderman Kowieski.
That, you do such an eloquent job.
My job.
Yeah, you do good. So with all of that in mind and said, the Technology Committee is not prohibited from exploring some of the topics that were discussed earlier today and at Plan Commission and bringing that forward to this body or through the Plan Commission as it may pertain to additional restrictions or requirements associated with cell towers that don't put us into a legally precarious position with what's currently in place state and federally, correct?
I don't know what they're going to do, but I suspect that they're going to try to absolutely wring out every possibility of making it more restrictive than it is now, bring that to the city attorney's attention, and if there is any possibility of making it stick, then I will recommend that we do it, if that is the will of this common council. You're going to have a very astute chair, I think, who's a lawyer.
I'm not a chair of that one.
But he's a lawyer, and he's going to be on there.
You don't hold it against
the
him.
chairmanship of that committee.
Would you like to entertain a motion, please?
I'd move to approve the ordinance change.
Second. Any further discussion? Call a roll, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Next on to new business, consider act on escrow agreement guaranteeing certain public improvements in the Hickory Wood Farms Phase 3 subdivision to the city of Oconomowoc. Mr. Fry.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. This is a very simple item. Back in 2017, Hickory Wood Farms Phase 3, 55 lots, was developed, and currently, right now, Home Path Financial has purchased the remainder of the lots, and so they're working with the original developer to take over the responsibilities to finish up the last few items, which includes installing street trees, the final lift of asphalt, and some erosion control items. And so that's what this is doing tonight, is the escrow agreement, which will provide those funds to make sure that we have the financial guarantee for doing that.
Any questions? Would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next new business item, consider act on ordinance 20-0981, amending 1.441A of the municipal code of the city of Oconomowoc relating to the Bureau of Economic Development and Tourism Commission. I'll do a brief discussion of that. We're adding one additional person onto this commission, and that person will be a resident of the city of Oconomowoc, and the goal is to have that resident be a customer of our city, looking at different ways in which we can try to improve the marketing and better understanding of tourism and development in our community. And that person is also on the mayoral appointments, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain those now. Alderman Shellpepper.
Yes, Mayor, I'm just wondering what prompted, the necessity to make this ordinance change. What kind of objective, deliverable issues were we, facing that I don't know if it was you or whoever decided.
Yeah,
that
this
we
was
needed to
actually
make-
initiated by me. Great question. When I went to these meetings, what we have is we have a lot of people that are business owners within the community, but we have no customer. And what's very difficult in marketing is your ability to understand what the needs are. So I would foresee this being a rotating position where at one time it may be a senior, at one time it may be a young person. In this case, the appointment recommendation is a young lady who was born and raised here in the city. She has one young child. She's a professional, the HR manager at Target. She is married to another gentleman, a CPA, also born and raised and went to school here. So what we're looking at is when we look at the demographics of the city of Oconomowoc, we're looking and we're not targeting a lot of our tourism and our needs to that demographic between middle age 30 to the early 40s. And so that was the impetus to do that, to bring in some new blood and some new ideas to the Tourism Commission. But that's where the impetus came from. Any further questions? Yes, Alderman Spiegelberg.
If there's a vote, there's an even amount. How is the tie broken?
The tie is going to be broken by then. Gosh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, I tried to put 2 on, but we can't based on state statutes. It can only be 5 to 6. So that's a good point. Attorney Riffle, can you help us?
Arm
with
wrestle.
that? Yeah.
Well, if you have a tie, nothing gets done.
I mean, that's the result. You hope you never get to the tie, and I hope we never have a tie again here, if possible. But a good point, yeah. I tried for 7 because I thought it would be ideal to have somebody in their 30s and somebody in their 60s on this, but state statutes do not allow us to do that. I'm comfortable with 6, if you are. You do, but you also have requirements on certain attributes that the others have to have in different industries. Correct. So this is an independent resident. Yeah.
Oh, so what,
Yes.
so what Stan's saying is we just pull you pull someone else off to make it the 5. But I could care less. Yeah, I could care less.
I can't imagine that they're going to tie on anything.
That's what we think here sometimes.
You never know.
You will tie a lot.
Yeah. No, if we do our right, we're not going to tie a lot. That's the goal. Yes, I do. They're a great group of people. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? A call roll, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Let's move on to mayoral appointments with common council confirmation. You want to go through that? Yes, please.
Did put at your stations a copy for public and Mayor talked with him and appointing him, and then what, as Mayor said, would be more the customer representative. She's not a citizen, where a lot of potential travel is and what interest. Those are the two
Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to confirm the citizen appointments as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Let's move on to staff reports. Sarah Kitsemble.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple things tonight. You may be aware that Census 2020 is underway. Jason shared an article with our team today about Census 2020 that Waukesha County is actually the 3rd highest in the nation for census participation. You may not be aware, we have a complete count committee here at the city, which is made up of different staff members across the city to get the information out to encourage participation in the census, and that's an important role that we play there. So that was an interesting little factoid for today. The other thing I want to talk to you about is that this is my last meeting tonight, so I wanted to report to you that we've been working on the transition, working with the mayor and all of the department heads, and I think we've got a good plan in place and moving forward. You've got a great leadership team here, and you'll be in good hands moving forward. We're in the process of doing the recruitment, and so we know that there will be a time of probably 6 to 8 weeks before you would have somebody on board again here. But again, I think we've got things in order, and we've got resources in place to help during that transition. So I just want to say before I go that this community and the people here will always hold a special place with me, and I'm proud to have worked here. And, sorry. I just want to thank all of the employees that I've worked with throughout the years. And you have a great team of dedicated people that will serve you well and really care about this community. And excuse me, I'm sorry. I would also want to thank all of our elected officials, businesses, and citizens. They, everybody here has a lot of passion and engagement for this community, and it really is what helps make Oconomowoc special. And that engagement is throughout the whole organization and with the whole community. And I hope that the teamwork continues to build, because success is built on the team of people working together towards your common goals. And you've got a great team here. You guys are a great team, and you're all very engaged, and we have a great community behind us. So I want to thank you all for the opportunity to have been a part of the city's journey through the years. I'm going to miss everybody, I really am, and I wish everybody the best moving forward. So thank you specifically to my department leadership team, and for all the and all of our employees and all of you as well. So thank you, and we'll keep working the next couple of weeks to make sure we're in the best hands that we can be. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll move on to reports and comments from the aldermen. You want to do a call? No timer? Go for it.
Certainly. Alderman Rogers. Alderman Rozak.
Just briefly, I had a few, and the mayor's been working with me on this, but we have a situation over on Silver Lake where there's a hanging trump on someone's, off their roof, off their deal on Silver Lake. And I only bring it up because I know the mayor and I have been working to try to get something done with regard to it. And I've had that's part of my constituency there. And I've had lots of complaints, and I promised them I would mention it tonight in the meeting. And I don't think that that's within the character of our community. And I don't think it's proper for a depiction of any person, especially the president. So I hope that we can continue working with these folks and see if we can get that done, because it's a poor reflection on us and down a Main Strip where a lot of people see it. So thank you for your help on that, Mayor. That was it.
I just want to say thank you to Sarah for your service to our community and building a solid foundation with the leadership at the city, and we wish you luck. Thank you.
On Saturday and Monday of this last week, there were two important events that happened here in Oconomowoc, which actually quite surprised me. And I want to thank the citizens, the residents of Oconomowoc for coming out and showing that they really cared. I want to also thank the police for making it a safe time on both those days, as well as the mayor's office for getting the permits as quickly as you did. I was there because I wanted people to know that whereas Oconomowoc has its issues, and every place does, that seems not to be one of them, or at least I've not experienced it outright. I want people to know, especially on record, that I love this community. I'm glad I made that move from New York City and New Jersey to move here. This community is a place where you can grow a family and feel safe about it. This community is friendly. This community is giving. and in so many cases, forgiving. I know that there's a lot of questions out there on what individuals can do or should do to further the cause of Black lives. I can tell you that Oconomowoc, you're doing it. And just by your showing of concern, by your looking at the character of the individual and not the color, you're doing it. And I personally thank you for that. I'm proud of this community. I've got no issues, no concerns. Thank you. Also, for Sarah, I wanted to thank you for your years of service and putting up with me and my stupid questions. Got a lot of respect for you. Thank you.
I'd like to first of all thank Kevin for your very sensitive comments. Appreciate that very much. And then I would like to personally thank Sarah as well for the huge and dynamic role she has taken on here. City of Brookfield is very blessed to get you, and you will be sorely missed.
Yes, continuing on that, I told you already that my mom thinks very highly of you from the videos that she has watched of her son as alderman, so she's going to miss you, as we all are. And I'm disappointed we won't get to work together longer, because thinking about this role, working with you was one of the reasons that pushed me over the edge, I guess, is what we all end up, right, over the edge here. So, and Mayor, great that we're going to have fireworks on July 3rd, so excellent decision.
Yeah, I wanted to echo some of Alderman Ellis's remarks. It was really heartening to see so many people turn up a week ago to the demonstrations and events and rallies, and also to see our police officers there doing an excellent job, just incredibly professional, protecting our businesses, our residents, and enabling people to be able to exercise their right to free speech, and also protecting our private property. On the other hand, I saw some things, I've heard from some things in the last week from District 2 residents that are also not within the character of our community, like Alderman Rosick said. And that was someone who lives on West Wisconsin Avenue who had some signs up that were in support of these rallies and demonstrations, and those signs were actually stolen. And so I said I would say something as well tonight about that, because that's not within the character of our community. And and they weren't offensive signs, so if you want to counter speech that you perceive to be bad, you need to counter it with more speech, with your own speech, not with the destruction or theft of private property. So that was really disappointing to see. So I wanted to bring that up as well. And then also best of luck to you, Sarah. Thanks so much for your service to the community as well.
Sarah? Look at that. I got a little song. 2 minutes. You have put your heart and soul into your position, and I don't think anybody can deny that. And being part of a council that is as dynamic as it is, and the opinions that are shared, we all know that those opinions and those positions are provided to move our city forward, and you have done that. So thank you. You'll be missed. To Alderman Ellis and Shellpepper, and I think everybody in regards to the times that we're living in and what we have going on. You know, providing voice as we represent our constituents, and the diversity of that voice. I found something that I thought it was something worthwhile sharing. These are not my words, but they provide some insight, I think, that is worth sharing. So here goes. I can't keep up. I just can't. I'm stressed. I'm exhausted trying to figure out what we're all supposed to do. Believe and be offended and outraged by next. 2 months ago, first responders were all the rage. In fact, they were heroes. We gave them free coffee, meals, and cheers as they drove by. Today, we hate them and we want to defund them because they can't be trusted. 2 months ago, truck drivers were the heroes as well for keeping America moving and the grocery stores stocked. Today, we block the roads with protesters, drag them out of the cabs, and beat them half to death. Nurses and doctors are still cool for now, but they may be unemployed. They too are heroes, unless, of course, they truly believe all lives matter. Then they're filled with hate and are part of problems like so many others. Just 45 days ago, protests were essential and were considered criminal, selfish, and murderous activity. Today, they are glorious, critical, and celebrated. All of the obvious criminal and murderous activities are simply ignored. If you protest about lockdowns for freedom, you are selfish and you will spread a virus. If you protest, loot, and riot for social justice, you are a warrior and the virus seeds. Trust the experts. No, not those experts. Don't wear masks, but only the good ones. Wait, don't wear masks. Wear anything as a mask. Never mind on the masks, we're good. Not sure, but if you don't, you hate people because you could be a asymptomatic spreader. Wait, that's not a thing anymore? For 3 months, nothing was more important than social distance. In fact, we gave up all our liberties for it. We canceled school, medical, and dental procedures, yet allowed the murder of babies, canceled activities, closed businesses, eliminated every spring rite of passage from prom to graduation, denied people funerals, even at Arlington, and we wrecked the economy for it. Then came social justice, and social distance was no more. Now, things are more cut and dry, though. 1,000 people at 3 memorials for some they never even met. It's a matter of respect, but you can only assemble 100 people or less. Black Lives Matter, and of course they do. Then multiple black police officers and individuals were killed during the peaceful protests. I don't see any outrage. Black individuals own businesses burned to the ground, silenced, deadliest weekend in Chicago, nothing. I'm really confused now. Look at the data. No, not that data. Do the math. No, you can't do the math like that. Only the experts can understand the data in math. What do you mean other cities, states, governors are interpreting the data differently? Pools are safe in Indiana, but not in Michigan. Playgrounds are safe in your town, but not mine. Amusement parks are safe in Florida, but not in Ohio, nor Michigan. Just listen to the black community leaders. No, not them. If you are silent, you are part of the problem. If you speak, you are part of the problem. If you have to ask, you don't understand. If you don't ask, you don't care. It's all so predictable, tedious, and exhausting. Nothing adds up. It's one gigantic Common Core math life problem. And every changing denominators that I'm sure the media and politicians are eagerly ready to solve for us until the next crisis. So for now, I pray God will heal our land and bless the United States of America. I thought that was an appropriate thing because there is such a state of change and opinion and varying opinion, and it is a blessing to live in a community that is focused on the community, all of those who live in the community and moving it forward. May we continue to do that and be stronger through this challenging time in our history and come through it not just better, a better community, but better people for it. So thank you very much, Kevin, for being there on Saturday and Monday and representing that. Very proud to be a resident of this community for that reason.
Thank you. Last agenda item, there are no additional reports or comments from the mayor, so if anybody would like to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all, and thank you for coming.